There's a lot that we don't talk about, sometimes due to embarrassment, fear, insecurities. We neglect discussions about the most common parts of our lives, things we all deal with, sometimes every day. But on the Caffeinated Gypsy podcast, together, we'll break all of those taboos and talk open and honest about shared experiences. Knowledgeable people relating things you felt but never put into words. Parenting, sex, fitness, energy, anything to connect you to your authentic self, unfiltered. Now, the Caffeinated Gypsy herself, a free spirit, world traveler with a passion for fitness and exploring topics that others might avoid. Hello, and welcome to the Caffeinated Gypsy podcast. I'm Stephanie Cotton, your host. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. I am doing another episode of Women Who Inspire, and I know you guys are really going to love my guest this week. I have Gretchen with me this week. She is also known as the Cardinalreikiyogi on Instagram, and let me just back up a little bit. I have known her the Instagram world for about a year, and I've been following sort of her journey and her story. And she's an empath, and she is a Reiki master. She also likes to bake. I just think she has a really cool story. She's also a yogi, so I don't know. You guys are going to love her. We have a conversation about just sort of her journey and discovering her abilities as an empath, how she went through a lot of struggles with depression and even almost committing suicide once. So her story is very, very inspiring to me. And I've just loved watching her really blossom over the last year. And we just have one of those, conversations I like to have with people where they share their sort of journey and what has helped them discover who they truly are and how their spiritual journey has really blossomed through their trials and tribulations. So you guys are going to love her. And don't worry, I'm going to leave all of her information in the show notes. So go find her on Instagram, follow her blog. She's amazing. You're going to love her. And you're going to want to go follow all of her stuff, I promise. Let's talk some updates before we get to that. Coffee subscription. Today is the 22nd, so tomorrow is the last day. If you're listening to this in real time, get your coffee subscriptions in by the 23rd if you want to get the Sagittarius coffee. Moving into Sagittarius energy today, actually. Sagittarius is that very fiery energy. It's going to feel a lot... what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to feel very laid back compared to being in Scorpio season. I mentioned this in my Patreon group this morning. I was talking about, moving into this energy. It's going to be interesting because Sagittarius is actually in our 12th house and it's going to move into the first house. So your 12th house is ruled by Pisces. So the first half of this Sagittarius energy, you're going to feel a real emphasis on expanding your spiritual gifts. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So it's all about expansion, growth, specifically in higher learning. So this is definitely going to be a time where you're probably going to be really interested in studying things that's going to help you grow spiritually, especially with it being in that 12th house ruled by Pisces. We're going to see a big emphasis on just spiritual growth, expanding your higher self. And then it's going to move into the first house, which is ruled by Aries. So then you're going to feel a little bit of a shift in that energy where you're going to feel more like, okay, I need to do things for myself right now. What's helping me grow? What's helping me become the person I'm supposed to be? It's going to be a good month. The energy, I think, is going to be welcomed. Not that Sagittarius is bad. It's just a little bit more intense. So if you're looking to lighten up a little bit, this is going to be a really good time. Mercury just came out of retrograde. Yay. I've had the worst time. I think I shared with you guys technically with computers and stuff. It actually has taken me an hour and a half to try to get this podcast up and going because I've had so much technical difficulty. So I'm definitely looking forward to Mercury moving out of the post-shadow phase so that we can get back to normal with energy. As always, if you want to join our tribe and you want to get those morning astrological updates or you want those exclusive Caffeinated Gypsy Tribe podcast, go join us. We would love to have you. There's lots of different levels to the Patreon, and you can do that at Patreon. go to Caffeinated Gypsy. Or you can go to my website, caffeinatedgypsy.com. And then, yeah, all the coffees are on there. So get you some coffee for the holidays. This Sagittarius coffee is going to be really good for the holidays, you guys. It's got smoky quartz in it. So it's going to balance that energy, which I think we all could use during the holiday season, right? All right, you guys. So let's get to this interview with Gretchen because y'all are going to love her. Hello, Gretchen. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Yeah. So why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, like what you do? I know you do a couple different things. You've got a very diverse background, which I love. So just share with everybody.
Yeah, okay. Well, I am a Reiki healer. I'm an empath. I'm pretty intuitive. I'm good with just helping people find their clarity.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what I've been doing for like the past couple years, trying to find my clarity.
Mm-hmm.
So in order, like everything I've gone through has kind of helped me to do this for you, you know, like help you on your journey.
Yeah. I always say like our trauma is our superpower because we couldn't do the work we do without going through something. So, and it sucks because it's like, oh, that's like a terrible way to have to like help people. But I believe like we sign up like a contract. I always talk about the contract. I believe like our soul knows like what we're doing and we get here in this human form. And then the only way to really be able to relate to people or help people is through our own healing journey. So I feel like it sucks, but we all go through that stuff with the sole purpose of being like, this is my life's work now. I'm going to take this experience and like help other people.
Yeah.
But it's not easy in the process.
No. And I you know, it like comes and goes. I've been going through a bit of a funk for like the past month now, but it's like, I know what's coming up is like, it's coming up because I need to purge and I need to heal it. And I need to feel it.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think that's like, I feel like personally the best healers are the ones that are very like open about the fact that like, hey, I'm still on my own healing journey. Mm-hmm. I don't think that we're ever not on a healing journey. I feel like when you get to the point where you're like, I'm healed, you've got more work to do. You know what I mean? I feel like in my life, every time I'm like, oh, I'm getting good. Like I'm at an even place. And then like the bottom drops out and I'm like, oh, there's another layer.
I know. Oh my gosh. And like it's just like, and it's the more like I learn about myself, like the little things, like just like, okay, like I'm a Capricorn, but my rising is Taurus and my moon is Pisces.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like, that explains so much more about me.
Wow.
Like, you know?
Yes.
The more I like learn and like dive deeper, like it's like, oh, okay, that explains some things.
Totally. Yeah. That's why I always tell people when we're talking about astrology and they're like, well, my sun sign is a Capricorn. I'm like, okay, but that's like the smallest little snippet of you. I want to know all the other stuff because it's like building a picture of who you are. And then I feel like once you kind of understand that, then you're like, oh, I'm not going crazy. Because if you looked at like Capricorn, you would be like, what is wrong with me? I'm so emotional. Like Capricorns are not emotional, but Pisces is hell of emotional.
Oh my God. Like when I figured that out, I was like, oh my gosh, that explains like so
totally
much. Like,
well, because if your moon is in Pisces, like that's your emotions. Like, so you have this very like analytical, like goal-oriented brain that's career-driven and goals. But your emotions are like, but let's just feel everything. Maybe we could just take a nap. Maybe we should daydream. And your Capricorn side's like, no, we have stuff to do. And you're like, but I really just want to Netflix and chill right now.
It's a constant struggle, but it's like it's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
That's part of the life path.
It is. And what I think is really cool about like you particularly, I've loved watching you over the last like year sort of bloom out. And I love people when I can kind of watch their story unfold because I feel like it's so relatable. Like your story, which we're going to let everybody hear about in a minute, is so relatable. Yeah. Like you're not like, oh, I've got this all figured out, guys, listen to me. You're like, hey, I've gone through all this stuff. It's been years of work. I'm still working on it, but I can help you now because I have a lot of tools to help you because I've been there. And I feel like that, to me, at least, I relate to that so much more because I'm like, oh, like she gets it. She's not like all together. She's like, hey, I'm still in it. But I've got all these tools and I figured a few things out and I want to share them with you.
Yeah. And that's exactly where I'm at right now. Like the beginning of this year was intense. Like I've gone through a lot of, I went through a big career change. Like, I don't know. Do you want me to start on my story?
Yeah. Tell everybody, because I love your story. I think it's inspiring.
All right. Well, I was originally diagnosed with depression when I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. It was seriously just like one of those moments of like, I was okay and then I wasn't. I was walking up to my mother and telling her that I wanted to kill myself.
Yeah.
Like, it was intense. It was like, I mean, a lot of things are happening when you were 12.
Oh.
Hormonally.
Yeah. 12 is the worst age. It's like going into middle school, like, your body, especially as a girl, your body's changing. It's the worst.
Yeah. There's just so much happening. Like my family life, like just a lot happening. Mm-hmm. So like I was diagnosed, I was put on Prozac, I gained a bunch of weight and all my friends just like sort of went crazy. Mm-hmm. And it's like, now that I'm older, I kind of see like, okay, I'm an empath and I really understand why all those girls went so psychotic on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, so I've been on this healing journey for a very long time. I've been in and out of therapy, in and out of like mental institutions. Mm-hmm. I was, labeled with that depressive, major depression when I was 12. And it was like, it's been difficult and challenging. And I've like definitely played this like role in my family of like the scapegoat and kind of allowed that all to unfold like that. But again, it's like I've gotten to this point in my journey where it's like I see it more clearly now. I see like why I went through all of that.
Yeah.
Why I had to experience all of that pain, all of that, to figure out like, okay, I don't know, about like 7, 8 years ago now, I had gotten up to like over 430 pounds. Like I was not happy. I was overeating. I couldn't leave my house. My anxiety was so bad and just numbing myself with whatever I could find. And it got me to this really, really dark place. And I think I've spent I'm 34 now. I've spent more than half of my life just being severely just miserable and depressed and just so out of alignment with who I was. Yeah. And it was I found that word empath. And actually I started with, have you taken the Myers-Briggs test?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I found out I was an INFJ.
Okay.
And you kept, when you look into that, you keep seeing the word empath.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing that, and I was like, oh my God, that really, describes me. Mm-hmm. But it took me, another 7 years. It took me to, the beginning of this year to really, grasp it.
Yeah.
To, figure it out.
Yeah.
It was, so intense to, start to figure out a lot of the emotions and pains that I have been carrying for years were not even mine.
Yeah.
I was so enmeshed with other people's emotions and feeling everyone else's. I didn't even know what I was feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, I've been thinking a lot about this. It's I've really had to get really good boundaries. Yeah. Because I didn't have any. Mm-hmm. And growing up with a narcissistic father, you don't have boundaries.
No.
You're not allowed to have them. And I didn't really even know what they were, how to do that. Or, stand up for myself. I didn't know how to do any of that. And it's yeah, it's just been a lot of healing, a lot of deep inner work, but I've like been really allowing myself to go there and allowing myself to feel the feelings instead of like running away from them.
Yeah.
It's like I noticed a lot of my anxiety has, you know, it was anxiety in feeling the feelings versus like just getting in there and allowing yourself to like feel it. And it's like, oh, it's, boom, it's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Do you find that because you had this label on you so early on, like of depression, that people didn't really take your feelings seriously? Like they were more like, oh, you're just depressed, or like that's just Gretchen. Because yeah. Especially as having like a narcissistic parent. I mean, that's like even harder. But I feel like from my own experience from depression and working with people with depression, once you get that label, everybody's like, oh, you're just depressed. Like you no longer actually have these feelings. It's just that like chemical imbalance.
Absolutely. And it's like, you know, like I very much latched onto that. Like I just, in the dialogue that was in my head, it was just like, you're crazy, you're unlovable, you're such a burden on your family. Like I mean, I tried to take my own life twice because it was just, you know, there's just certain points in my life that it got so bad that it was like, I thought that was my escape plan, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I was blessed to be able to have access to like mental health care, but at the same time, not every doctor that I have encountered has been great. Yeah. You know, and some of it's been really challenging, but luckily I've like had the outlet to talk to people, even though I do feel like that label of like being depressed was like, I mean, that was just like something just like hung over my head for years and years and years. Like, I don't know how many times people have like called me the black cloud.
Oh, that's so sad.
Like, it's like it's sad and it's frustrating.
It is.
All of it, you know, it's really allowed me to go like to some like deep down really scary feelings, but it's like, I've been there. I know what you're going through.
Yeah.
And I'm like living proof like you can get out of that hole.
Yeah.
And that's like pretty much like really concentrating the past like 7 years of my life. I've been like crawling out of this hole. Yeah. And it hasn't been easy, you know. It's like been a lot of like taking a step forward and then like all this other shit like piling like bringing brought up to the surface.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
I think there's something too to be said about being able to just go to that dark place, even, you know, something we don't talk about a lot in society, but contemplating like suicide or having, you know, suicidal attempts. I feel like when you're able to really go to that place, there's not really much else. There's nowhere further down you're going to go than suicide, right? So once you've sort of been to that place, you're like, death doesn't really scare you anymore because you're like, it's just, you know, when you're in that space, because I've been in that space, it's a mean to an end. But I feel like, especially once you come into like this sort of healing journey, when you're, you know, literally dealing with spirituality and metaphysical things, you're like, oh, that stuff doesn't scare me because I've been there and I faced it. And you take this fear kind of removes itself from death in general. And I think that is also part of like that learning process and healing. And I'm not advocating suicide if anybody's listening to this, but there's just something about going to that place where you're like, okay, like that's not a scary thing. Whereas so many people, I think, really are scared of death and that fear. And when you've been to the darkest place, you're like, it's not really as scary as you think. And I'm okay with this now. And now it's like, okay, that's not necessarily what I want. I'm not ready to like end this. So I've got to figure something out. And I feel like you don't get comfortable with that until you really face some of that dark shit.
Well, that's exactly what I've been doing. Yeah. Like, it does. It's like it's prepared me for the next step in my life, you know? Just I don't know. It's been really intense, but it's been really a good journey. Like I still have a lot of just like hope and joy, like even through like the ups and downs. It's like
Well, I think it helps you appreciate the good times, right? So when you're able to pull yourself out, you're like, oh, this is what it feels like. Because I feel like so many people walk around like just numb and not really feeling things that, you know, the thing about depression is there's always this idea that like you don't feel, and it's the complete opposite. You're like, I feel everything, and it's hard to pull yourself out of that dark place, but it's not because you don't feel, it's because you're feeling it all. And I feel like as empaths, this is so common that you have depression because you, like you said, like there's no boundaries. Like, so you're taking everybody's stuff on and you're feeling it. And it's easier, I think, to kind of like feel the negativity, especially if you're already predisposed to that with family situations. So being able to really like, when you're able to pull out of that, the good stuff feels so good. Like so good.
Yeah. Well, and it's like once I, so it's like, I don't know what it, sorry.
You're good.
So like, I don't know, I was really called to like get my Reiki certification. Last December. Like, I don't know what it was, but like the universe was like Reiki. Like everywhere I was looking, like Reiki. I'm like, I don't even know what this is.
Right.
And, like I asked a friend of mine and she's like, oh, you have to go here to get your training. And I was like, okay. And it was completely life-changing because it helped me get energetic boundaries. And it's like, once I like figured out that and how to like differentiate between my energy and other people's energy, it was like, oh my gosh, like I don't actually feel the way that I was feeling. Like it was being able to like separate it and then be in my own energy, in my own feelings. It was like, holy shit, like there's so much things that I've been like just going along with my whole life and like feeling this way because this person felt this way. When it was really like, oh, I didn't feel that way at all.
People pleasing.
Exactly. And like I was so codependent and so it just enmeshed in my family and my friends and like now it's like I'm able to like step back and like see just like so many patterns that I have been repeating and so many just like learning opportunities and like, okay, I see what I have done here. I see how I've usually reacted to this situation. And now I'm like seeing it differently and like, but it's like I had to experience all of that firsthand to understand it.
And I think that's like so common. It's just, I think that's one of the breakdowns in our mental like health system is nobody really talks about like, hey, you could be an empath and you're feeling all this and you have to feel all this stuff to really understand like your purpose in life. Like when you're in high school, there's no test. It's like, hey, you may be an empath and you're going to go on to be a healer, right? So you don't know that. So you're not prepared for that. Like, and nobody teaches us like, hey, these are energetic boundaries and this is what it's like to be an empath. So I know like for most of us, unless you've had like a really, really good childhood with parents that are into all of that stuff, we're all just trying to piece all this stuff together. And it's usually through trauma. And then we're like, oh, as adults, we're figuring it out like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what this is. Okay, I'm not really crazy. This is all of their stuff. And this is like, oh, I actually feel this way. This is interesting.
I think, it's like once I realized it's like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. It was completely just like liberating. It's like, okay, this is, I don't want to use the word like normal, but it's like it's an empath thing. It's just like, okay, I'm highly, highly sensitive and like, it's okay. It's okay that I'm sensitive. And just like loving and accepting myself because I didn't love or accept myself for most of my life. Like I just, it's funny. It's like those things that people have like ridiculed you about like your whole life. Like I was always too sensitive. I was crying too much. Or I was doing this. I was doing, and it's like, now I'm like, oh, okay, I am really sensitive and a nurturing person, and like that's a good thing. Like,
absolutely, absolutely.
But for so long it was like, it was so much, and I didn't understand what being in like that empath, like I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that's what I was.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to learn more about these like energetic boundaries. I think like even if you're not an empath, like we pick up shit all the time. And we just like weigh down with like other people's shit and we don't know it.
Yes. Well, it's so funny. Like, I feel like once you start to realize and you start putting up boundaries, and then it's like you almost become even more sensitive. Like going to the grocery store, you're like, oh my gosh, that was kind of exhausting.
Yeah.
Because you're so like aware. And before it just kind of becomes a jumbly mess. And you're like, oh, I have anxiety, I have depression. And we just put it all under this like umbrella of things when it's really like, yeah, we have that because we're picking up on everybody else's stuff around us.
Absolutely. And it's like, but it's like, it's definitely been a process to like figure all this out. Cause it's like, that information is out there, but it's like, it's funny, even like 5 or 6 years ago, the information that's out there now, like it wasn't out there.
No.
So I've just been like fumbling around in the dark for like the past 7 years, but it's like, each time I'm like going out there and looking, I'm like finding more information. Or even it's like now I'm in like a better place to like understand certain information now. Like, you know.
Yeah. I think it like comes to us when we're ready.
Exactly. And like, it's kind of funny. Like I, at the beginning of this year, I found, Empath Alchemy, and she's the one who led me to your podcast.
Okay.
But it was like the perfect timing of like me needing to like see like other empaths out there like doing their thing, and using their voices and speaking up and like let's talk about this shit. And but I wouldn't have been ready before, you know? Right. It was like that like perfect moment of like finding you guys and like, oh yes, like people are like opening up and like talking about this now.
Yeah. I do. I believe like when we're ready, it's like all of a sudden it's like right in front of us. And then you're like, where was this before? But even though we're like, we could have used this 5 years ago, realistically, we probably weren't ready for that. And we wouldn't have listened to that, you know?
Yeah, like I wouldn't have like understood it because it's like, even though I found the word, it was like, I still didn't truly understand that, like
So do you mind sharing with everybody sort of like what actually pushed you to starting like this journey? Because there was like a moment in your life where you're like, okay, no more.
It was like, I just got chills. It was it was my 27th birthday, and I was over, the highest I got on a scale, I was 385 pounds, but I put on like 40 pounds after that. That was like another moment. But it's like, so I was like over 430 pounds, and I've never really had good birthdays. They've always just been terrible. Like 2 days after Christmas. And it's always just been like, you're at home during like school vacation, so you never get celebrated like at the school. And, like,
it's an inconvenience.
I was never like celebrated on my birthday, and like my brother like played hockey growing up, and we were always like on some sort of hockey tournament on my birthday, like that kind of thing. So it just like, it was like years and years and years of just like shitty birthdays, and like finally just getting to this point of like, I've had enough. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I told myself, like, by my next birthday, like, things are going to be different. Like, something needs to change. And I literally, like, within like the next month, I started walking, and I started just like small steps around my block. Like, that was literally all I could do, was like one lap around the block. And I just kept like building myself up from there. And it literally took baby steps. It literally took me doing very small actions like every day, and just like keep building and building upon that, because yeah, like I didn't love or respect myself, and I needed to very much go on this inner journey of just learning to like love myself.
Wow.
And yeah, like I built myself up to like 7 miles every morning within like a year and a half.
Wow.
And I think I dropped like 100 pounds like that first year and a half, because it just like, you know, I stopped drinking like 6 cans of Coke a day and
Yeah.
ordering like all like the pizza and Domino. Like I stopped doing that. Like I didn't cut out all junk food, but it was like
Just little things.
yeah, just like little mindful things. And like I also really started, I think affirmations have been one of like my greatest tools.
Yeah.
That's why like I love your chakra book, because I love your affirmations in there. But like I started with one affirmation, which was like, you as much as anyone else in the universe deserve your love and respect. I think it's Buddha. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But like I started with that, and it was one of those like, I just like randomly found that quote one day, like the universe likes to do.
Yeah.
You know? Just like send you those moments. And I remember like sticking it up in my bathroom because I didn't want anyone to see that I was like trying to better myself.
Oh.
You know? But it was like, yeah, I would like look at that every day and I would say that aloud, and I just like started from there, and I just like kept building from there. And like then I was doing like a gratitude journal every day.
Yeah.
Like literally like I had to change the way I spoke to myself.
Yeah.
Because the way I spoke to myself was terrible. The inner dialogue was so horrible and judgmental and just like this constant loop of like, you're crazy, no one, you know, like just, you know, that depression that just like it takes hold of you and it makes your brain go really screwy. So it was like starting that gratitude journal was huge for me. Like literally I would not get out of bed in the morning until I wrote 10 things I was grateful for.
That's awesome.
Like that was like my first thoughts of the morning.
Yeah.
Like mornings are like, you know, that's how you're starting your day. You're like already thinking like, oh, I've got a terrible day ahead of me.
Right.
Like, no, I really needed to retrain my thoughts. And the thing with like all of my weight loss, it was like, and I've noticed like the past couple of years, it's like the more inner work I have done, the more like the weight just like falls off, and I'm not really even doing anything. Yeah. It's like, just keep working on that inner self, because what's inside is what's going to reflect outwards.
Absolutely.
You know?
It's that armor our body puts up.
Well, and that's the other thing that I learned about empaths. It's like we put on weight because it's like a protection.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I probably will always have like a bit of a belly because that's our solar plexus.
Yeah.
Where we like really absorb a lot of
Absolutely.
energy. So, yeah. It's just, it's been a long journey, but I'm like, our healing journey, that's like lifelong process. We're always going to be like peeling back that next layer of the onion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I don't think it ever ends. I don't think it's supposed to end.
No. I mean, like, if it ended, like, then our journey would be done, you know?
Yeah. So, like, what advice would you give to other people who are maybe maybe they're empaths and they're at the beginning of this spiritual journey?
I would just say, like, baby steps. Like, just take one small action, like, every day. Like, I have become a really big believer in doing, like, one small thing that, like, scares you, like, every day. You know, like, with my anxiety, it was just, like, even like getting to like the yoga studio, like that was huge for me to like even go there. Cause I had like so much anxiety of like going. Yeah. But it was like, okay, I wanted to like step outside my comfort zone. So I did it, and it was uncomfortable, but it was was great. I've met some really beautiful people in that community.
Yeah. And your story with that, it's really cool because you started at home and then moved to a studio.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Over the place. But
I just love that.
Yeah, with my walking, like I started with yoga as well because it was like I was doing all this walking and my body like was like screaming in pain from like all the walking. So I wanted to add something, and at that point, like 7 years ago, I was too freaked out to like go to a yoga studio yet. Mm-hmm. So I started with like a Wii Fit. And I just started with that, and then I started with like the YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. I found this one lady that I just absolutely loved, and I kind of went from there. And then I would do that every day. I would go on my walk, and then I would come home and I would do yoga, and then like I just kept like branching out further and further every day, and and then it took like another 3 years to like actually get me to a studio.
That's okay.
But it's like, it's baby steps. Like it's not going to happen overnight. And that's kind of been like my lesson this year. Because it's like, I finally got like really aligned with like what I wanted to do in my life. Like, want to be this Reiki healer, and I want to help people with this. And I want to help empaths and like just other like highly sensitive people. And I've been like wanting to like race forward, but it's like, well, no, you gotta slow down. Just like you're on the right path. Yep. There's some things to keep working through. Yeah.
Have you heard of Mel Robbins?
No.
She's amazing. She has this book called Take Control of Your Life, and one of the things that she talks about is how we always put these really big, huge goals out there, and that a lot of times we do that, and it's because we're scared, so we make these really, really big goals. But in reality, it's really like building a Lego house. She's like, the Lego house is like one little block at a time. She's like, and sometimes we start it, and then we're like, oh, I don't like where that block is, and maybe we move it, or maybe we do a different color or whatever. But she's like, that's what your goals are. Like, it's like these little Lego blocks, and it's those small things that equal the really, really big things.
Well, exactly. And that's like, it's just doing those small things. It's like doing those affirmations and sticking with them, like just saying them every day. Like at one point I did like every day for like a year and a half, I had like my mala beads. Yeah. And I would be meditating, and my mantra was, I am enough.
Oh, that's
and
powerful.
I would do that meditation, and that's like 108 beads, and I would say that to myself every day. Wow. And there would be a lot of tears coming up. Yeah. It was one of those, like, I didn't really believe it. Yeah. But I knew I needed to do this type of thing. And then it got to the point, it's like you're saying them every day, and then like that becomes your internal dialogue. Yeah. Like, that dialogue of, okay, I am enough, and I believe it now.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So it's just starting with one small little baby step that you can do to build on that foundation. And like, I'm a really big believer in like letting things burn, like letting things like burn to the ground, like when things are like not working. And that's kind of what I've been doing my whole life. It's like, if something doesn't work, it's like, okay, I'm just going to let that burn, go up in flames, and I'm going to rebuild. Yeah. And I think a lot of times we're really scared to like do that and like, have those like tower moments. But like they're like, I'm a life path 7. So like I'm all about like spiritual knowledge and like learning and I'm actually, I don't know, I'm like a 16-7. Okay. Which is like, I came in here with a lot of karma. Yeah. To like heal. Yeah. But like I was watching something, and she was talking about 16-7s and how their mantras are like crash, burn, and learn. Yeah. And that's pretty much my life. Like I crash, I burn, I learn, and then I teach others. Like this is what I've learned. Yeah. When I like crashed. Yeah. You know, like I feel like that's definitely what I'm here to do. Yeah. And that takes a lot of strength. A lot. Like your path isn't
I mean, it's so funny. You always define, people think that like depression and things like that is like weakness in a way, but like your path is one of somebody that has to be strong. Like you don't pull yourself up out of the rubble. Like you're like a fucking phoenix over and over again. Like that's strength. Like that's some scary shit to let everything burn down around you and rebuild constantly just to get better and better.
Yeah. And that's like a beautiful analogy, like the phoenix rising from the ash. Like that's just, it's kind of, I guess it's what I signed up for this time around.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Well, share with everybody where they can find you, because I know everybody's going to be like, oh my gosh, I have to go find her Instagram now.
Okay. I am Cardinalreikiyogi on Instagram. You can check out my website, Cardinalreiki.com. I've been posting blog posts, which is like something I was really scared to do. Like I had started an anonymous blog like months ago, but now I'm like finally like putting my words out there and sharing.
Yes. And I'm so glad you have, because they're really inspiring. And I feel like they're like, what I love about you is you're just so real. Like I read that and I'm like, oh yeah, like I feel like that, or I felt like that. I'm not like, oh, this is some chick on here who's got everything like figured out. Never mind. Like I love your page.
Thank you. I love your page.
Thanks. Also, if you're in the Chicago area, because you're in Naperville, right?
Yeah, I'm in Naperville.
Okay.
I do Reiki healing. I'm currently only doing Saturdays starting in November. So if you're interested in learning more about Reiki, like reach out, send me a message. All my info is like on my pages. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story. I think you're amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And we will link to all of Gretchen's stuff in the show notes. So if you want to go, stalk her page or anything, then you'll have access. All right. Well, thank you so much, girl. I appreciate it.